This is the 2025 edition of the Jack Daniel's Heritage Barrel Release. This is a love letter to the brand's traditional barrel making techniques with a limited single barrel offering. So what's this one taste like? What is the actual availability of this one? A lot of questions surrounding this bottle about the availability. Find out all the details right now that you need to know. It's a Mash and Drum Monday. What's up, folks? I'm Jason C. from the Mash and Drum, and welcome back to the show. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you for your continuous support here on the Mash and Drum. Appreciate it. So back in 2018, Jack Daniel's released single barrels with the Heritage Barrel label. Now, the barrels for that release went through a unique toasting process before they were charred. Then they were filled with an extremely low barrel entry proof of only 100 proof before being placed on the top floor of their rickhouses. Now, when they were done aging, they were all proofed back down to 100 proof, which in today's terms just means it's a foolproof type of offering, somewhat like Weller Full Proof that enters the barrel at 114 proof, and then it's bottled at 114 proof as well. Now, if you weren't lucky enough to grab one of those back in 2018, it's back for 2025. Now, the 2025 version also entered the barrel at 100 proof, and it's also bottled at 100 proof, and it's matured at least 7 years in their highest elevation barrel houses, also known as Coy Hill. All right, so here is the key. Now, the plan for this one is for it to not be a limited release and will be bottled throughout the year to keep shelves replenished. Now, with that said, the folks that I've talked to said that the barrels did lose more to Angel Share than expected, so even though it's not limited, expect this one to be somewhat limited, especially at first. Think of this like Old Forester 1910 was. Remember, it came out and everyone went crazy for that whiskey, and then it flew off the shelves, and we didn't really see it again for a little while until it was fully stocked and available on the shelf as it is today. So retail for these are going to be $79.99, call it 80 bucks for a 750 milliliter bottle, and they're all starting to roll out right now. All right, let's get a pour. Oh, not a big cork pop there. So as you can see, I've already put a quite little dent on this one. It's already down past the shoulder, which I like. I always think that's like the perfect, you know, either just past the shoulder or right at halfway seems to be the universally perfect spot that a bourbon is at its best, usually, or a whiskey, whatever you want to call it. Okay, really dark color here. Again, that heavy toast that they put on here just really brings out a lot of sweetness. So let's see what this one tastes like. Now, I wish I had a 2018 to compare it to, but that bottle is long gone. I actually really loved that bottle when it first released, so let's dive into this one. This thing is so sugary sweet, and it smells like a burnt marshmallow to me, like a total burnt marshmallow. Now, another interesting evolution of this bottle has been the lack of banana in the beginning, and now the emergence of the banana now. But it's not that fake runts banana note. It's more of like a banana pudding, Nilla wafer type of cookie that's all wrapped up in here. So the banana's there, but it's not super in your face like the banana chip that I get on Old Number 7, or some of the, you know, like the runts banana note you get in some other Jack Daniel's offering, where it's like a really artificial tasting banana. This is more of a banana pudding note. It's just a little bit more subtle. It's not as in your face. That marshmallow, you can make a case for like a nice like gingerbread, a little bit of a gingerbread cookie in here too. But that marshmallow and that deep, rich vanilla, brown sugar note, borderline molasses. I don't think we're quite at molasses, but there's a borderline molasses note here too on the nose. Just really enticing, really sweet. If you love toasted whiskeys, toasted bourbons, this could be right up your alley, so let's give it a try. More of the burnt marshmallow right up front. Then this kind of leans into a little bit of that, again, that banana pudding. I do think the banana has gotten a little bit stronger with this one. I don't think you're ever gonna really escape it. However, it's just a little bit more muted on this one, which I appreciate. Just gives it a different feel, a different type of character to a Jack Daniel's than we're used to. But really the best thing about this, I think, is the texture of this. The mouthfeel for 100 proof whiskey, I think is really impressive. Again, you're using that really, really low entry proof. So basically entry proof, normally the industry standard is you cannot exceed 125 going into the barrel. So once you're going into the barrel at 125, you can go below that, but you can't go above that. So when you go in at a lower entry proof, that means you have to add more water in the beginning when you're filling those barrels rather than after the fact. So what you're essentially doing is breaking down the wood sugars with that added water in the beginning of the process rather than adding it on later and really kind of altering the flavor of the whiskey. This way it's more integrated. It could be a lot sweeter because that water is really breaking down the sugars within the barrel. So there's a lot of good things to lower entry proof. However, it's more expensive to do because if you're adding more water, that's more volume to your whiskey, which means you need more barrels to fill them. So it's kind of a give and take. I mean, the more you sip this is a borderline burnt marshmallow covered in rich caramel dipped in banana pudding. I mean, and maybe dusted with a little cinnamon on top. It's so good. It's velvety, it's sweet, it's silky. Now what's interesting about this is that it's entering this family of toasted whiskeys that have become a little bit more readily available on the shelf. So you have Penelope that's done toasted, Elijah Craig has a toasted bourbon, a toasted rye, K. Luke's doing toasted, Michter's has done toasted, obviously. So a lot of people have done toasted offerings in the past several years, but have also made them permanent additions to the shelf, which is what this Jack Daniel's is supposed to be. And I think this one could be one of the better ones for people to grab. Because it doesn't give me that bitter, almost aspartame note that I get in a lot of toasted products. But this, I'm not really getting it. This one is just a little bit more sweet. It's more balanced. I think the only negative to this one a little bit is that I think it dries your palate out a little bit. But if that's the worst thing, there's a lot more good than the drying out part. I think you can make a case for a little tobacco on the back end, and there's a nice little hint of milk chocolate there too, especially on the finish. So this starts out just all marshmallow, caramel, again, that banana pudding that's just ever so slightly in the background of this pour, and then that little bit of like a sweet tobacco and chocolate on the back end. This is so good. It's for 100 proof, I think it packs a lot of flavor. Does it have the longest finish in the world? No. I just think overall it's gonna be a huge hit for Jack Daniel's, especially if this ends up being more readily available on the shelf. So last sip there, more of the same, toasted marshmallow, more of a burnt marshmallow or a borderline burnt marshmallow. Again, dark caramel, that banana pudding, and I do think there's a little bit of a tobacco note on the back end with a hint of chocolate, a bitter chocolate that just dries the palate out just a tiny bit. I really do hope that this ends up being more readily available on the shelf because I think this has a real possibility to be a very popular product that a lot of people are gonna like. Jack does it again. All right, let's go to the question of the day before we go to our final breakdown. All right, so before the final breakdown, our question of the day comes from WKFF Chameleons, who asks, what bottle of bourbon would you consider as the one that started you down the path of an aficionado? Aficionado is a very fancy word. I don't think I'm an aficionado. I mean, I'm a geek about it, but so kind of a two-part answer. I've told this story before, so if none of you know it, I'll keep it a very short version. The bourbon that got me into whiskey, that got me into bourbon, was a Booker's. It was a very cool bartender that introduced me to Booker's. She was actually already into bourbon, which was pretty cool. And she was like, have you ever tasted anything at cask strength, full proof, barrel proof? I had no idea what that meant at the time. And when I tasted that first pour of Booker's, I was blown away at how much depth of flavor that type of bourbon had versus like a regular Elijah Craig, or even my Wild Turkey 101 that I love sipping. Now, while Booker's made me really curious about bourbon, the bourbon that made me want to explore as many as I could and really got me focusing on the layers of flavor was actually Elijah Craig Barrel Proof B517. Remember Elijah Craig Barrel Proof B517? That was a very popular batch. I think it was around 124 proof and change, but that bottle is what made me like, holy crap, like it's so layered, there's so much to explore. That's the bourbon and the whiskey that made me want to go down the path of learning more and refining my palate as much as I could. Great question, and if you have a question of the day, make sure you write QOTD in the comments and put your question right after that. All right, it's time for the final breakdown. All right, final breakdown here for the Jack Daniel's 2025 Heritage Single Barrel Release. Price for this one, $79.99 is the retail price. As far as resale market value, we're seeing these at about $200 to $250, which Again, I think people are trying to capitalize on the FOMO of this, especially in the beginning. But remember, these are gonna sell for $79.99 retail. And if you miss out on the first wave, there will be more. So if you have some sort of patience, not a lot of people have patience. I certainly don't have patience, I could admit that. And if you walk into a store where somebody has this upcharged and behind the counter, you should probably school them and let them know that there's more coming and there's no need for it to be that price. Just a heads up. Availability here is limited at first. We know this is gonna be limited with a plan down the line for it to be more readily available. But for now, we'll just call it limited. But the plan for this is to be more of an ongoing release. How frequently of a release each year, we don't know, but we'll have to see. Value here at $80 I think is even. I think at 80 bucks, it's a great whiskey. It packs a lot of flavor, packs a great punch, and I think this is one of those, this could be kind of a Swiss Army knife type of whiskey, to be honest. Because I think this is a type of whiskey that can get people who are a little bit afraid to get into whiskey because of those really nice sweet flavors, how dark it is, how delicious it could be. I know it's expensive, but even at 100 proof, this could probably be a great toasted bourbon to use in like a black Manhattan or even old fashioned or something. Again, this is, down the line if these become more readily available where you can, get it whenever you can, especially when you consider there are a lot of other toasted bourbons out there that are more expensive. Most I pay here is retail. I paid a little bit more to get this, for a review, but if I had the chance to go back, I think 80 bucks is gonna be the perfect amount. So the most I pay here, I think is gonna be retail. I think it's great for the price. Alternatives here, I think your best alternatives to this one are gonna be twofold. I think a Woodford Reserve Double Oaked, which is a lower proof than this one, but I think gives you a little bit the same flavors here. I think the Peerless Toasted Bourbon could be a nice one to this, but I think that's more expensive than this one is, or maybe around the same price, I forgot. Also a little bit of a higher proof than this one is. And lastly, you have the Old Forester 1910, which we mentioned earlier. Now, that's not toasted, that's kind of a double oaking process, but the barrels are charred to almost the barrels disintegrating. So it's a little bit of a different type of char. It's a little bit more of a coffee, chocolate type of combination of flavors. But hey, if you can, why don't you do a blind tasting, grab a few different ones, double oak toasted bourbon, see what you like. K. Luke also has a great toasted bourbon as well that I think could probably go up against this as well. And lastly, is this a skip a try before you buy or buy and back it up? I think this is a definite buy. Maybe a borderline back it up if it does become more available. However, if it's not available right now at first, just try to be patient and try to grab this one when it hits the stores, when it hits the shelves. I just think it's going to take a little bit of time. These are still starting to roll out. We'll see how many are available, and we'll see how much more available it becomes down the line. But overall, if you have a little patience, wait it out. I think you can find this one at retail eventually. If you have to have it right now, I get it. But this is just a really, really good toasted whiskey from Jack Daniel's. Again, the price point is right. Jack Daniel's between the 12 year this year, the 14, and now this, they're absolutely killing it. So cheers to Jack Daniel's, another killer release. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this review for the new Jack Daniel's Heritage Barrel Release for 2025. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the subscribe button below. Please hit the like button. If you haven't yet, find me on Instagram. Let me know down in the comments if you've had this one yet, what you think about it. And as I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. Cheers. Don't forget to leave your question of the day down in the comments as well, and I'll see you next time right here on The Master Drum. Cheers, folks.